Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 2, where we are still working our way over towards Eve, and it is complicated by the fact that our maneuvers are fundamentally broken. So there is that. The good news is that we're getting pretty close. We should be in a position after this burn, I think, where we're circularized around Eve, and should be able to go for a pretty simple situation here. So that looks good. We're almost in position for this burn, and we're going to be warping forward as soon as we basically are in position for it. We're tossing in a bit of roll, a bit of pitch, and a lot of yaw. So you can see here that our electric charge has been consumed fairly extensively as we work our way through this, but I'm really not too concerned about it. We're very, very close to it here, but it looks like we had a slightly bad angle on the way over, and so we had to arrest that momentum and bring it on to where it is right now. So we just needed to definitely bring it to a halt and rotate it on over. So that all looks good for now. What doesn't look good, of course, is the frame rate, or the fact that our apoapsis and periapsis are perpetually broken, or the fact that our maneuver node is perpetually broken as well. There's all of that. But let's just go ahead and warp on forward here. We're pretty close at this point. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start angling us over by default like this. Okay, let's get this turning, and we're going to brake with the warp button, as we have been doing. So that'll make things a little bit more maneuverable for us. That's great. And I mean, our angling isn't fantastic, but it doesn't really matter. So we're going to need to do something like this, actually, to stop our roll. That will have to be the current mission there, because the roll is going to become a problem going forward. Okay. So we're just working on getting that roll gone, but it's, of course, we need to go the other way. We're going to work on getting that roll gone, but that's going to take some time. Not too concerned about it. We're very close to this maneuver node. Let's just warp. Fantastic. So we're going to warp around 174 days. And I'm going to light up this burn fairly early here. So that'll be fine. We're not going to do too much warp manipulation here. We're not out of electric charge. In fact, we're full on electric charge. So that is fine. So we're cruising on forward here. We're basically in position for this burn. And we've got about another 50 days to warp. Now, how far out is this going to place us is the question. Probably a couple hours. 4 hours out. Okay, let's warp a little closer than this, but I'm not going to get it down to the perfect timing. That's really not necessary. So as soon as the game gets caught up here, we're going to warp again. There we go. Cool. So that looks absolutely fine once we get the physics turned off again. The frame rate is definitely not ideal. I'm hoping it will improve once we get rid of all of this. What won't improve, of course, is our electricity flow, but it should be okay, in theory. So we're going to start up another burn basically right now. We're 2 minutes and 15 seconds away. So let's commence that burn as soon as the game allows us to. I have ordered it to burn, but it'll be a bit before the game gets caught up. There we go. Now we're going to jump into 10x time warp. So we're looking to roughly circularize this at this point. Now we're, of course, waiting for the physics to turn off. There we go. And I want to get into the map view and get a good view on what we've got going on for this burn. Okay, I actually want to burn a little bit more than what we have here. Okay, let's crank this up to 50x and go about 5 times faster on this burn. Cool. Like I said, I want to burn a little faster. Oh, it took us out because we, I think, passed the burn timer. That's unfortunate. We're not actually approaching a partially out of fuel orbital event, but the burn timer we are passing here. So I think that's why it took us out of warp. Let's put ourselves back in warp for the time being. We're going to continue to lock to retrograde. But we need to wait at this point for the physics to turn itself back off. So that'll be fine. Okay, so we're back up to 10x warp at this point. I want to take us back up to 50x. Because we're just looking to roughly circularize here. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, this was actually about when I wanted to exit warp anyway. It took us out because it thinks we're approaching out of fuel again. We are not, but whatever. This is about when I wanted to exit the warp anyway, so this is fine. We're going to turn off our engines, and hopefully, from here, we can actually do this. So I'm going to pause the game so that we can right-click on Eve and set as target. We can see we're off by 0.3 degrees. I'm not going to be too concerned about that. And the question is... Yeah, we can't actually do that while the game is paused, which is unfortunate because the game runs okay when it's paused. But when it's not paused, not so much. Okay, let's see about pulling this in. Ooh, 233 is our threshold now? That's really not great. Okay. Let's see what happens if I bring this up a little bit more to about 250. About there or so. And then what I want to do is I want to make a quick save, and I'm going to reload the game and see if this reinitializes this and makes this node actually start working. That would be nice if it did, but to be honest, I don't really think that's going to happen. At any rate, it's going to take a moment to reload. I will be back in just a moment. Okay, so I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is that when I reloaded the game, it did in fact reset the maneuver and the maneuver was functioning. The bad news is the maneuver stopped functioning when I opened the map. So there's that. So in that case, what are we going to do about this is the question that must be asked. Because it seems like this really, really doesn't want to do anything that we want it to do. Well, the answer is the only thing we can do, I think, is just make a save and try it at various places and revert it back. Because we would use the maneuver system, and this will functionally use the maneuver system without using the maneuver system. If that makes any sense. So I'm going to warp us up to about here. And once we arrive there, we're going to need to be in retrograde, which we currently are, but we're going to have to turn to that. So this is going to be a very tedious process indeed. But I'm currently looking at how quickly this is moving compared to how quickly we are moving. And I mean, in these different orbits, eventually we would hit a point where we would have an interception. The question is, what point is that? And I don't know the answer to that one. This is going to be very, very spicy indeed. So I'm going to make a quick save here, because we're going to have to be able to revert this if we don't get it correct, right? The way the game is intended to be played is you use a maneuver node for this. So you would just come up over here, create a maneuver plan, we'd do a retrograde burn, and it would tell us before we burned the fuel if this was going to end up rendezvousing, which this almost certainly wouldn't. But yeah, as we get closer in here, it breaks. When it starts thinking about patched conics, specifically. Wait a second, is this working this time? Up until the very moment it would give us the prediction we need. Hang on. We might be able to get there from here. Did that not set Eve as our target? It did. Okay. So now what we need to do is unpause, and we need to bring this out. No. This is so tedious to do with this frame rate. This would be so much better if we could do this with the game paused. Okay, so we need to bring this out a little bit until it appears again, which should be quite soon. Okay, now we have the prediction we need. So we can see we're going to be on the opposite side. We're probably going to have to wait an orbit or two because of this. But we at least get a prediction now. This out here, we would have to drop down a little bit further. But we can tell for a fact we're pretty far off of our target marker here. We're basically as far away as we can be right now. And again, this wouldn't be the case if the maneuver system had just, worked properly from the get-go. We would have dove in from much higher up, and we would have gotten ourselves an encounter much more easily. But what we need to do right now is we need to take a full orbit. So we're going to time warp around, and let's go. So we're going to take a full orbit here, and we'll see what that ends up looking like. Eventually, this will give us an encounter. The question is, how many orbits are we going to have to take? It will likely be a number of them. This is not an efficient way to go, but without maneuver nodes, what are you going to do, right? There's only so much maneuver noding that we can do here. So we can just barely squeak in a prediction of where we will be relative to the target. So it's definitely going to be, I think, another several orbits would be my guess, because we're down so low to the target. But this is not the way that I would prefer to do this, by any means. But with the maneuver system broken, I don't see another way to feasibly do this. At least not as quickly. This would be the quickest way to do it, in theory. So, let's try this again. We're going to do a retrograde check up over here. No, I want to grab retrograde. There we go. Okay, so we bring this in as much as we can before it disappears. Okay, so 215 is apparently too much. But we back it off to there. And you can see, yeah, we definitely had a change here. But it is not going to be an encounter. So we're going to have to do another orbit here. Again, this is not the way I would have preferred to do it. We would not have to do these orbits if we were starting from a higher orbit. But with the maneuver node this fundamentally broken, we just got to do what we can, right? So we're just going to warp around again, another orbit. And that will get us closer. But I'm guessing it's going to probably end up being several more orbits based on how much that actually ended up moving. It's definitely non-ideal, but it does mean that our braking speed is going to be fairly low, all things considered. So that is decent, I suppose. I'd like to have a braking position of 120 kilometers. I'm not sure how realistic it is to achieve that with this level of control fidelity. This level of control fidelity is very low, so we may have to dial that in a little later on. For now, what I want to do is I want to check here again. We're definitely getting into a better position for an interception. I like it. So let's create a maneuver plan, and this is going to be a retrograde burn sometime up over here. I think retrograde is grabbed. Let's move this out. Okay. So that is giving us a small differential there. The question is, as it comes around over here, is that timing going to improve? Let's see about dialing this guy in a little closer. That breaks it. Okay. I didn't see a frame there where it was unbroken and giving us a projection. Let's see if there is one. No. I don't believe that there is. So that's a bit problematic for us, for sure. Let's bring this around to here then. and see what it would look like out over this way. That's actually really close. Okay, next orbit, this will work. So we're going to come to here then. So we're going to warp around one more time, and we're going to have an encounter here. Good. Then we're going to have to try to dial in that encounter somewhat. That's going to be exciting. But this is definitely not the way I would have preferred to do this. No doubt about it. We had to resort to a dirty workaround here, and I'm not tremendously happy about it, but, you know, this is a very finished game. There are no problems with it whatsoever, no performance issues, no bugs. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I'm not just delusional, right? I'm pretty sure I'm just delusional. Okay, let's get ourselves this encounter, and it'll be somewhere up here-ish, most likely, or maybe up here. So let's start down this direction as soon as the game gets caught up, and we're going to get ourselves this encounter. This is definitely going to be a thing. Okay, we're going to create this maneuver plan. We're going to dial this back to over here. Okay. I believe that this is an encounter. Distance from target, 2.059. Yeah, that definitely should be dialed in. So we might be able to dial it in with just that text if this isn't broken. It's broken. Okay. Can we see anything in our patched conics at Eve? Probably not, is my bet. Can we focus on Eve, please? Okay. So I don't know for a fact that we have an encounter here. I suspect that this is an encounter. It's probably not a great encounter. Let's dial it back a little bit. Maybe that isn't an encounter, actually. Can we get rid of this, please? Thank you. Maybe that isn't an encounter. These are pretty far apart at this point. So let's move this guy up this direction a bit. Okay, yeah, that's an encounter. Is that actually a collision trajectory? That might be a collision trajectory. We're actually getting patched conics here. Remarkable. I'm actually shocked we're getting patched conics here. Yeah, that's a collision trajectory. So I don't necessarily want a collision. What I want here is 120 kilometer periapsis. I don't know that we can get that. I don't want to recover the vessel. Go away. Okay, what is this? That's a very nice curve. But we can definitely dial that periapsis in a little bit. I'm not getting a tooltip here. Can we go away on the recover vessel? Thank you. Oh, hang on. Pinned. Okay. 17,000 kilometers. Let's see about dialing that in a little bit. So I want to bring that in to... I want to go retrograde a bit. This should pull us closer. It's actually pulling us further away. Okay, so we need prograde a little bit here. Cool. 15,000, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 8,000, 7,000, 5,000. One question I have is this going to be pulling us retrograde? Because this is going the opposite direction of what I expect. I think it is going to be retrograde, so we should try to flip that around. This is now going up. Okay. Let's take a quick peek here. So this is very close to being in orbit. We're going to be coming in here and going out here. And I believe Eve is going this direction and rotating this direction, right? I'm like 45% sure that Eve is, well, does it rotate clockwise or counterclockwise? Hang on. Does Eve rotate clockwise? The planet's rotation is retrograde, meaning it rotates in the opposite direction compared to other planets in the Kerbal system. Yes. So, let's see here. We need to just take a peek at this. Okay. So I'm going to enter warp here. We need to determine what direction Eve is rotating. We've got 92 days, so that should be fine. I'm going to go to 10x speed for right now. And we're eventually going to want to go to the maneuver node. But I'm going to go to 10x speed for right now. We need to determine where this rotation is. Okay. So now we're going to need to accelerate this up so that the rotation is hopefully visible. I'm going to accelerate it a little bit. I think it's going this direction. Yes, it's rotating this way. Okay, that means that we are coming in retrograde to its orbit, but prograde to its rotation, which is the correct direction here. So, now what we can do as we exit warp, we could just accept this periapsis. Or we could dial it in a little further. And I'd like to try to do that. We're still at about 5,000 kilometers here, and I'm thinking that we might be able to dial it in with a little bit of... I think we're probably best off using radial here. Okay. Yeah, that's coming down fairly nicely. I don't want to get this down too low because I don't think we can run this very precisely. Okay. That is losing efficiency. Let's just call this good as it is. We're going to head around to this rotational point. And we've been working on doing that for a little bit, but we're still working on accelerating up. That looks fine. Okay, so we're going to get this rotation done, but this rotation is going to take a bit. I will see you guys once we're a little bit closer. Okay, so here we are just about fully turned, and that is looking decent. We're a little off on our angling, but it's fine. I'm not too concerned about that. As long as we're in a reasonable position here, it'll be fine. And to be honest, we're going to want to just lock retrograde probably anyway, because I don't really care about the small amount of radial that we threw in there. It's not going to do very much. We could dial that in probably with a little bit of normal, but I'm not too concerned about it. All we want to do is get ourselves into that orbit, because I'm pretty content with how curved the orbit is and how little it's going to take for us to break to actually be in orbit of Eve. So that is fantastic. Keep in mind, this stage only has 672 meters per second left in it. We've got a little left in this center to be able to hopefully put ourselves into the desired orbit. We'll see if that ends up actually being the case. So we just need to turn this last little bit here, and we are, of course, going to be braking with our warp button here. That'll be absolutely fine. We've got about 92 days to warp here. And let's just get ourselves into position. Almost there. This is not wanting to turn very swiftly here. That's probably because we had some speed going this direction that it had to counteract. But it looks like we are beginning to turn now, so that is good. We will be in position here very, very shortly. Okay. I'm going to call this probably close enough. I'm going to give it one more second here, I think, and then we're going to jump into warp as of... Oh, this is so close to being centered. Now, let's go. Okay, I'm going to call that centered for the moment, and we're going to head right on up to the maneuver. Now, this maneuver, I do want to hit reasonably precisely. So, let's see where this ends up putting us at. Probably about 4 hours away. We're going to warp forward again, for sure. No doubt about that. And then we're going to have to hit this reasonably precisely, right? Because I want to be very much in the position that this maneuver is putting us in. I think that's a really good position. I'd like our orbit to be a little lower on the periapsis, but I don't think it matters all that much, to be honest. So the periapsis lowering is fine. Let's continue to warp forward here for another 4 hours or so. And we can probably begin this burn anytime we want to, but the question is, do we want to begin it at the precise time? If we didn't have the performance issues, I would definitely say yes. I want to perform this exactly at the moment that we are supposed to. I don't know how reasonable that actually is. Let's see where it puts us. It's 242 away. Okay, let's go into manual warp here. As soon as the game gets caught up, anyway. We'll go into manual warp. There we go. And let's proceed forward. As soon as the game turns off the physics again. Turning the physics on and off is apparently a very intensive activity. So, here we are. I mean, I say it's very intensive, but it doesn't actually hit my hardware all that hard. It's just hitting one CPU core. So, there is that. Okay, so we're at 10x warp now, and we're cruising on forward. This is not going very quickly. I'm going to take it up to 50x for the moment. I'm going to drop it back down to 10x when we're below 1 minute. Okay, dropping it back down to 10x, and then we're going to put it at 1x when we're at 10 seconds remaining. So, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, yes. This is going at a normal clip for this, I guess. Bring it down to 1x, and we're going to need to re-enable physics. 3, 2, 1, there we go. So, physics is now re-enabling. We've got 5 seconds left on the clock here. Looks good. I do want to put us on just retrograde here, most likely. So that'll be fine. We can just position ourselves right on the retrograde marker. This will be about 5 seconds. It's not going to be very significant. But we're going to start up this burn very shortly here. It'll be a 1 minute 44 second burn. So 3, 2, eventually, 2, 1, and mark. Engine is on. We're going to 10x. Okay, so we're going to stay here at 10x and get through a lot of this burn. We need to get into the map view as soon as we can. Okay, we're in the map view. I'm zooming out. Still zooming out, and we're going to make our way over to Eve here. I want to focus the camera on Eve, and we want to be hitting basically this exact orbit, if we can. The question is, can we? Or at least a very, very similar orbit. We've got about 1 minute left here, and I'm going to continue moving through time warp. Okay, so we've got about 45 seconds left in this burn. Now 40. Cool. So with the time warp, this goes at a semi-decent speed. But it's not fantastic, that's for sure. But it's definitely playable. So 15 seconds remaining. 10 seconds remaining. Okay, we need to drop out of warp. It actually manually dropped us out there and paused the game. Okay, that's exciting. Let's turn the physics back on here. And we're going to need to burn about like this for, in theory, 8 seconds. Now, we don't have this encounter yet, and we'll see what that ends up looking like. We want to have an encounter. Okay, 6 seconds remain now in this burn, in theory. 5 seconds remaining. 4. Okay. I want to keep burning like this. 3 seconds remaining in theory, but we don't care about this anymore now that we see this. Okay. We appear to be losing some efficiency on the burn, which is to be expected. Once this starts to go back out, that's when we want to cut the engine. Okay, this is about as good as we're going to get, I think. So we're going to call it good here. So now what we want to do is we want to get a burn going there. But we're going to have to warp into the sphere of influence, and that'll be fine. So I want to verify that we're going the correct direction. I'm 99% certain that we are here, but I want to verify that eventually. But for right now, it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we are going to perform our rendezvous with Eve, and we're going to get a braking burn right about here. And we should be able to get ourselves into an Eve orbit, and let's see how close we can get to our target orbit. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Ali Lee, Dark Horse Xenocyte, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.